You're listening to NFT 365, the first daily podcast on NFTs with your host, Fanzo.
What's up, friends? Brian Fanzo here. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about the NFT space, but also this emerging Web3 world, and I focused a lot of conversations around, the creator economy and the idea that we are greater than me, and the idea that the rising tide lifts all boats. But I feel like I've done a little bit of a disservice to the conversation around, what does this all mean as far as how do we manage this, right? Like, how do we as a project, as a community, as an industry, as a vertical, how does all of the mechanics around this work? And I'm going to tell you, I think one of the most underrated jobs, also undervalued jobs, also underappreciated jobs, and in many cases under-researched, under-validated jobs, is one of the most important in this NFT space. But here's the thing that's interesting, is that it's no longer the same role of the past. Now, this role that I'm talking about, has to do with what I believe is the future of business. I believe the future of business is community. And I've explained on other episodes of the podcast, but I think it's important to highlight, right? There's a difference between a community and a following. There's a difference between a community and building an audience. There's also a difference between community managers and being a moderator. There's also a difference between being a community manager and a social media manager, right? Social media marketing manager. Now, I'm excited. I'm going to, getting back to events, IRL events again after, a good amount of time off. And, as a full-time keynote speaker, that's my primary job. One of the events I've spoke at for the last 7 years, although there wasn't one last year, was Social Media Marketing World. It's actually the largest social media marketing conference in the world. And I've had the luxury, I attended it as an attendee the first year, and I've spoken there every year since. And this year I'm going to be speaking on NFTs for business and where the NFT conversation goes. But interestingly enough, as that event is getting closer and I'm heading out to San Diego, I'm having a lot of people hit me up and say, "Hey, Brian, I know you're immersed in NFTs and NFT projects. What is the skill set or the role of a social media manager or a community manager in this new environment?" And I started off by saying, I believe social media managers and community managers are the most undervalued. Here's the funny part about being a social media manager and a community manager, is your job is to be on the front line. You have to tell the story of the brand. You have to be able to be oftentimes the first one that deals with any public interaction. You have to be customer service, customer support. You need to lift people up. You need to support them when they're down. You need to pay attention to global events. If there's something going on in the world, you need to be able to pause your schedules. You need to be active when people are looking for you. You need to be listening for people that need your attention but haven't mentioned you. You have to be the voice of the CEO but not speak always on behalf of the company. You have to be the one that troubleshoots while also understands the importance of building them a funnel. You have to be the first touch point in many sales scenarios where people, hear about your product, they follow you on social media, they reach out to you, all of these things. And then for the longest time, we were hire an intern. An intern can do that job. And here's the truth. I've actually seen some examples recently where someone's like, "Brian, we just took care of our community management, our social media management, and our moderator of our Discord. We just hired this 15-year-old kid that wanted to intern for us." We're going backwards, my friends. We finally had moved to a point where we understood, and in my opinion, the social media manager should be in every board meeting, should be in every executive meeting. And I know it sounds crazy, but for me, how are they supposed to know what to say, what not to say, what the brand message is, what the brand story is, if they're not included in those conversations? And this includes NFT projects. If your community manager or social media manager are not involved in your actual decisions on what you're going to announce, how you're going to announce it, if you are simply sending them an email and say, "Post this to the announcements feed at 1 p.m. today," that is a moderator. Now, I believe the skill set of a moderator is an important one, right? They have to be able to manage the tone. They have to make sure people are posting in the right channels. They have to deal with, especially in Discord, different, bots and different roles that are going on. But there is a massive difference between someone that is moderating what is going on in Discord versus someone that is a community manager that is in charge of facilitating conversations, for being a voice of the project, but also a voice of the community of the owners. And here's the craziest part about this whole thing is that I believe in the NFT crypto space, this job is now 10 times harder. 10 times harder to be a community manager in NFT Project. Why, Brian? Why would that be? That's what you might be thinking. Well, here's the scenario. In the previous world, for brands or projects that had strong community, and remember, just having a Facebook group is not community. That, in many cases, is just a container for your network of leads, right? Having an email newsletter or email subscriber list is not a community, right? A community are people that are coming together based on the shared values and a common purpose for achieving a certain outcome. Now, in the NFT space, the shared values actually start with the fact that we all own this NFT. Now, the interesting thing about a lot of NFT communities is there's a combination of those that own the NFT and those that want to be part of the community but don't own one of those 10,000 NFTs that are out there, right? They want to get a feel of it, or maybe they just can't afford it, but they still want to be a part of it. Well, first of all, that's a really hard balance, because one of the most important aspects of community is actually exclusivity. Now, bear with me. What I mean by that is there's a reason that you want people to be like, hey, this is our community, and it's not just everyone can be a part of it, everyone can come in, because that's not a community. A community is not something that people can come and go and anyone's in, anyone's out, right? A community has to have some kind of gate, some kind of container around it that there's an entry point, and in many cases, an exit point. But remember, a community isn't about people inviting people. It's about the shared values bringing people in. And the values of that project are what ultimately are going to keep that community involved. Now, here's the case that I think everyone has to listen to. If you're a part of an NFT project, and let's say it just launched, you have the reveal day, and everyone is talking about the floor, right? Everyone, because we know that happens in a lot of NFT spaces. And just for my own peace of mind, I just have to put out there, could we all just be a little bit more patient? Just a little bit more patient. Holy hell. We want the roadmap, we want the execution, we want a return on our money, all of it within 24 hours, 48 hours. So the first thing is to every collector out there, have some patience. Remember that you bought into these projects because they have long-term value or you like the roadmap. Don't focus on short-term variables if you got involved for long-term success. Now, if every short-term variable is trending down, yes, you want to pay attention. But I think it's so funny that in the first 48 hours, people are like, you know what, I think I'm just going to dump this NFT. The price is going down. And I want to be like, wait a second. You told me you wanted to get into it because you loved their 90-day roadmap and what they were going to do at 90 days. So you bought it because you're excited about what's going to happen in 90 days. But what's happening on day 2 is forcing you to eject. There's 2 things involved here. One, you're massively paper-handsed and probably over-indexed, over-taxed. You used too much liquidity to get into the project, and you're just really scared about the money side of it, which is perfectly understandable. The other thing might be you didn't really get into the project for the long-term roadmap. You post about that on Twitter, and you tell people you know what, this has a great roadmap and these founders are amazing. But the truth is, you think there's enough there for you to make quick money. And if that's the case, you have to own that. And I believe if that's the case, what you're measuring for why you're investing has to be different than if you're investing because of the long-term hold. And Gary Vaynerchuk, VFriends, since day one, Gary Vaynerchuk has said, do not get into VFriends if you are looking for a quick buck or a quick flip, because that's not what this project is about. That is not where the value is going to be. It's going to be after VCon 1, VCon 2, and VCon 3. Now, of course, there were people that got into VFriends for 1 ETH and it raised to an 8 ETH floor and they flipped it for 7 ETH, right? And I like, holy hell, that's amazing. But here's the thing that's important on that is that there are projects that you can evaluate to say, wow, the hype and the buzz around this and the fact that there's enough whales and there's going to be enough transaction and the price point is low enough that, hey, I'm going to get in there, I'm going to make quick money, and I'm going to get out. But we have to first stop telling ourselves lies about why we're in projects and why we're involved. And I think that starts on us. So that's like kind of that bigger picture. Now, the reason I said that a community manager role is way harder, 10 times harder in the NFT community than it is anywhere else is because of a multiple different factors. One, it's a shift in ownership, right? Like the shift in ownership, the fact that it's not that everyone bought into something and that they want to get the services that they bought, right? Like when a lot of people talk about community, like, oh, Brian, it's people that paid to come to my events, and they paid, $2,000 for my event. They know they're going to get in real life event, but we also talked about webinars and weekly Twitter chats, whatever that may be. That's a transactional kind of community relationship. And yes, there might be a roadmap. Yes, there might be quote unquote utility, but here's the difference. There isn't ownership value in the long term and short term. What I mean by that is traditional communities, if you are paying to be a part of it, you don't get your money back and you don't get more money if the community is more successful or achieves more of their goals. Let me say that again. Traditionally, if you buy into something and that something you bought into it reaches uber success, you as the person that bought in, you don't benefit from that success. In the NFT space, let's say I jumped in and I bought, I'll use Coalition Crew. It's a great project we bought for Mint 365. Peter Vogt and the team are there. And let's say you bought into Coalition Crew, which is a great NFT project. With that project, you get access to their executive mastermind community. You also get access to some in real life events. They also are doing some giveaways that if you have like a wine glass in your cougar, your cheetah PFP, you get some things that are access to it. But here's the difference. Traditionally, if I bought into Peter's mastermind, I paid for a year and I would be in there and get my benefits for a year. With Coalition Crew, I bought the NFT. It gives me access to that community for as long as I want to be a part of it. But guess what? I bought into it at 0.0 or 0.1, I believe, 0.1 Ethereum. Well, right now, I believe the floor is like 0.49 Ethereum to get in. I could actually make 4 times my money and get out of the project if I wanted to. I also now know that anyone that's new that is entering is paying that much more money to be a part of it. And I also know that if this Coalition Crew community becomes more successful and more, exclusive, that more people are going to want in. And with that more demand, all of a sudden the price of my ticket goes up. Now, here's the thing that's interesting from a community manager's perspective. You ever heard the phrase, too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Like, what's that phrase really mean? It means, there's too many people deciding on what's going to be made in what order. And when there's too many people, it's just utter chaos, right? Like, no, you have to cook it 12 minutes at 400 degrees. No, you need to cook it 10 minutes at 450. No, you shouldn't even cook it in the oven. It should be, cooked in your Ninja Foodie or whatever it may be. Well, guess what happens in these communities? What happens is that there are a lot of owners that have a lot of ventured interest in this community's success. And they want to have a say. They want to be aware of what's going on. They also believe they deserve it because they own a piece of the success. They also believe that because they were in early, they should be treated better or higher than others. And here's the truth about true community management. community management recognizes that it is not about top-down leadership. It is not about bottom-up leadership. It is about how do we as a community welcome in new people, help shape the direction that we are going, and ultimately come together around those shared values and that common purpose. Now, here's what I believe. And I'm going to guess everyone that's listening here, like, I want you to think about it right now. Take a moment. What is your favorite NFT project community? Think about your favorite project community. It could, maybe you have a mutant ape. Maybe you are in the Playboy Rabbitars. Maybe you're in the Meta Whips from West Coast Customs. Maybe you joined the Bunny Buddies recently, one of the projects that we minted for Mint 365. Maybe you're part of the Giraffe Tower with Gary Henderson. Maybe, whatever it is. I want you to think about your favorite NFT project. And then I want you to think about this. Do you, as an NFT holder, know what the values are of that community as a whole? Now, we know not everyone's going to have the exact same values, but you have to kind of have a vibe, an energy of like, what is bringing everybody together? And then you also have to recognize, do I know what the purpose of this community is? Now, if you say the purpose is utility, or the purpose is roadmap, or the purpose is to make money, the project has not done a great job of defining their values and their purpose for you. And I will tell you, here on the podcast, I'm going to flip it a little bit on its head. I take great pride in knowing that many of you, especially those that listen every single episode, you know that like my values is that we are greater than me. My values are in the idea that together we are better. My values are that we respect and we create an inclusive world where we support each other, but we don't, stay silent when there are things that we do not agree with, right? Like these are the values that are part of this community, right? And I hope what the purpose is, right? The purpose is that we can come all on this journey. We can be educated. We can be motivated. We can be inspired. We can teach each other. We can ultimately explore this new world of NFTs on this journey of creating content every day for 365 days. Like I take great pride in our Discord because our Discord is not about me. I might be the one that has like the role at the top that says futurist, but if you join our Discord, it's about connecting with the other people in the Discord and those that are on my team. It's about people welcoming new members. I don't welcome new members into our community anymore. You know why? My community has taken on that role without me having to actually say anything. The community has realized that it is up to the community to develop that culture. And here's the other part about this that's so important. I just told you what I believed my values were and what my purpose was. But let's face it, as a community grows, it's no longer just about my values and my purpose. It's now looking at the collective whole and being able to adapt, being able to lean in. And here's the truth. There are a lot of great leaders that are not great at leading communities, especially digital communities. There are a lot of very powerful people that have managed people in person, people that have been CEOs of companies, people that have written books, people that have been on stages, people that have done amazing things. But what they struggle in is they believe that the community circles around them and it's the people come there for them. And here's what happens. If the people are there for the people that are involved only, it is not a community, it is a network. It is not a community. In many cases, it becomes an audience or a following. Now, I don't think there's a problem with creating an audience or knowing where your following is, right? Like, I think you should have an email newsletter. We have one now here with NFT 365 that we're excited to keep growing and exploring here on the podcast. But there is a difference between people that sign up for the newsletter because they want to be aware of what's going on and be part of the audience of the podcast versus those that want to join a community, because here's the other part of this that most struggle with. For a community to be successful, the members of a community have to feel as though, A, their voice is heard. It doesn't mean that you do everything that everyone says, but you have to make sure that people are acknowledged when they speak, right? It's a pet peeve of mine, right? If you tweet me and you tweet at me right now, right? iSocialFans on Twitter. Anyone that's listening to you, if you send me a message, a question, I might not get back to every person, but I will promise you this. I will heart that tweet because I will make sure that I let you know that I heard you. That's what most people want. Most people just want to know that their voice was heard. People believe what most people want is they want to know that what they say is the outcome that is actually being delivered. But that's not the case. It's actually it's a complete falsehood. We as people don't want to say like, hey, everyone should do everything that we say. But what we want to know is that if you ask us for feedback, I just asked you to tweet me on Twitter. Well, you can't really tweet me anywhere else. You can only tweet me on Twitter. If you tweeted me on Instagram, that would be a little awkward. But I just asked you to send me a tweet on Twitter, right? How would you feel if I asked you to do that? You took the time out, and yet I didn't even acknowledge that you did that. Well, the first time you'd be like, Brian's busy. Remember, busy is an excuse. Brian's busy. He has so much going on. And then the second time when I say, you know what, I would love for everybody to leave a review on iTunes and then send me a screenshot of that review so I can say thank you. Well, then you go out of your way, you go on to Apple Podcast, you write a review, you take a screenshot of it, you post it on our Discord or on Twitter or Instagram stories or LinkedIn, and you tag me in it, and I don't do anything. I don't like it, I don't heart it, I don't acknowledge that you did it. Well, now what do you feel like? You're like, screw Fanzo. Screw that guy. Why am I going to take the time to do what he says, to reach out, to make my voice heard, when he doesn't even take the time to acknowledge me? Ooh, it's a pet peeve of mine. And I will tell you, I spend hours a week making sure that people know that their voice is heard, because I personally can't stand when someone wants me to give them feedback or asks me to do something, yet doesn't even give me the validation of a fist bump, of a heart, doesn't let me know that, hey, thank you for giving that information in. Now, the reason all of these are important is because there are people that struggle with this idea, right? Because here's the thing. I built the podcast with Drew and Kevin and Ryan and our team with it. Like, this was our goals. This was what success looked like. These are our values. These are our vision, our purpose. But guess what? Things have changed and have adapted because I believe we are greater than me. And the greater we has started to say things like, Brian, how can I help? How can I be more a part of the community? Brian, how can I be more involved? Brian, what can I do to celebrate the podcast? Hey, Brian, I would love it if you did these episodes on these topics. The more that we've been able to bring the community in, it's not only shaped the direction of our content, but it's also shaping the direction of our community. What are those values? What are those goals? And here's the truth. You might be listening to me like, oh gosh, this is so right. Like this, I mean, a lot of these communities I'm a part of, they're not doing that. And then you might be like, but Brian, where do they start? Here's where you start. You need to make sure that the values that you hold, that you believe are the core values of this community, the core values of yourself as a leader, you need to make sure that they are voiced, they are repeated, and they are a thread into everything that you're doing. It doesn't mean that you say the exact same thing over and over and over again, but I will tell you, how many times have you heard me talk about, I want to practice what I preach, and I believe in community, and we is greater than me. Like, I can tell you, I didn't go into this podcast saying, when I launched it in November, like, oh, I'm going to hammer home, we is greater than me. Like, that's what this podcast is going to be about. What became of that was people were coming into this, project, into this community, and were asking themselves, like, what is this all about? Like, I feel a little bit lost in the NFT space. None of my friends in real life are into NFTs. I kind of feel alone and isolated. And all of a sudden, like, for me, it was like, well, my mission in life is to help people feel less alone. It's why I talk about my ADHD and neurodiversity and going through a divorce and being a single co-parent right now, right? Like, I share all of those because I want people to not feel alone. And so when I recognize that people are feeling alone in this community, I want to create a place for that people don't feel alone, right? And we're going to do offline events. We're going to do events in person. We're going to travel to different places. And so here's the truth about this whole thing. The role of a community manager has to be one that balances What are the core values of this community from leadership? What are the core values of the community from the owners of the NFTs? And how do we find that common ground and move forward? That means you have to actually relinquish some of the things that you believed were important. That means you have to be able to remove as much as you add to your community. It also means that that community manager must be empowered to have a voice, and their voice better damn well be recognized, and it better be valued as equal, if not greater, than what the collective founders talk about. What I mean by that is, it doesn't mean you let every NFT holder drive the direction of your project. But if you sell out your project and 80% of your audience is like, you know what, I don't really care about the metaverse. I care more about merchandise and getting access to bi-weekly Twitter spaces. And if you're like, no, we are set on doing this metaverse. We are going to launch a metaverse. That's where we're spending our money. That's where we're spending our time. Guess what happens? People are like, oh, they don't value what we want. They're doing what they want. And I no longer want to be a part of it. And guess what? I can sell that. And you know what? I so much want to sell it. I'm going to undercut the floor price and I'm going to sell that NFT right now. The craziest thing about this is people look at NFT projects and they're like, you know what? How do we grow the floor price? How do we increase the volume? This is what most people think. We need to get in front of a new audience. We need to attract new people. Because if we have new people, we have new people coming in, then the floor price is going to go up. Wrong. Truthful. Here's what you do. Here's why that's wrong. Because having more people that want something that the current people don't care to hold on to does not increase the value. Let me say that again, so we hear it again. If you attracting new people to a project, but the people that are already in the project don't find what they're actually a part of any value, guess what they do? They sell it for the cheapest available price. And so you have new people coming in at a lower entry point, and guess what that does? It just keeps the floor down. Now you're asking, okay, well, Brian, if it's not about attracting new people, what is it about? It's about understanding that you need to maximize so much value for that greater community. You need to deliver on what you say. You need to be transparent in your communication. You need to value all of those that are in that community. You need to lift up people in the community and let them know not only is their voice heard, but they have a say in what's going on, because guess what happens? They now feel like they have a ventured interest, because guess what? What we joined this to be a part of is now happening. And guess what they do? They tell their friends about it. They brag on podcasts. They go onto Twitter. They tweet about how amazing this community is. And guess what that does? It all of a sudden it attracts a new audience that says, I want what you have because you love it. And then guess what happens? They go in and say, and a majority of the people, 80% of the community says, I'm not selling. There's too much value here in this community for me to sell. I'm not selling. Well, guess what it does then? The people that 20% of people now get to determine the price. And guess what the price does? It keeps going up because new people get in and they're like, holy crap, this is an amazing community. I'm not selling mine. And now that 20% available market goes to a 10% available market, goes to 5% of people are willing to sell their NFT because the mass majority of people know that they love this community and they're a part of it. The other people are like, you know what? The supply is the same and the demand is going up. I'm going to hold on to mine because the value is going to increase. And so I say all of this, and I'm passionate, I am yelling, and I would say I'm sorry for yelling, but I'm not sorry, because I refuse to allow community to become a buzzword. I refuse that we should not be okay with community being like, people are like, oh, I got a community, it's a Discord channel. No, Discord's just an app where people can communicate and you can have conversations. It is not a community unless you create a community, right? And now here's that balance where I want us to also remember. The importance of community is exclusivity while also being inclusive. Let me say that again. Exclusivity As in, hey, there's only 10,000 people in here. You have to buy an NFT to get into it. Inclusive, meaning, hey, everyone is welcome that can come in, and there is something for everyone that has those shared values and those common purpose with us. Now, the other part of this is when you're scaling a community, these things become even harder. And when you're also starting off a community where the risk tolerance, the amount someone has to give to be a part of your community is higher than their normal, or it feels as though they're giving outside of their comfort zone, their desires, their needs, their belief in the community has a lot less bandwidth. So here's something that I'm going to do a whole episode on this, but here's something that I believe. Projects that start with a higher mint price have a much more difficult journey ahead of them in creating community. And I would actually argue that 99% of NFT projects that start with a mint price, an Ethereum mint price of greater than 0.15 will struggle in more often than those that have a lower entry point. And you might be like, well, Brian, that doesn't make sense. Like, here's the truth, right? You want people to put skin in the game is the phrase, right? You want people to have a buy-in. But here's what you don't want. You don't want people to feel like everything they have is in there, because if they put everything they have in there, they want everything that you could possibly provide and more, because they are so scared to death on losing what they have. The other thing about it is when you put in more up front, your expectations of getting more back are greater. And it's so weird, right? Because if you buy into a project at 0.04 Ethereum, and it says at the 30-day mark, we're going to deliver this virtual game and we're going to have a merchandise store. And you buy into a project at 0.25 Ethereum, and it says at the 30-day mark, we're going to do a game and we're going to have a merchandise store. The deliverable map is the same, but the ability to be patient, the ability to feel like you're a part of something, the ability for you to like, hey, I'm gonna believe that they're gonna deliver at the 30-day mark. Here's what happens. The 0.04 group just cares about the community and say, hey, when we get to that 30-day mark, I hope they deliver. The point that people that bought in at 0.25 are like, I need to know what you're doing every single minute of every single day for me. And if you're not telling me, I'm going to bitch about it. I'm going to complain about it. I'm going to post about it. I'm going to watch the floor. I'm going to get rid of my project because I don't believe in you anymore. And so that's a problem. The other problem with communities is that if a community has a high number to start with, your ability to define culture and values and purpose is a lot more difficult. I would actually argue that the projects that are heavily hyped, the projects that have a lot of people in them to start, you need more community managers than you need anything else. You need a group of people that are listening to what people are saying, listening to what they're not saying. They need to talk to the moderators to understand what the moderators are hearing and saying. They need to be able to listen to the outside community of those that aren't part of the project, right? Like a great community manager understands what's going on inside of the community, as well as what's being said about the community on the outside, while being able to know what the vision is of the founders and what the core pulse is of those members. And this is where I feel, giving someone a role and saying you are a moderator, a community manager, and a social media manager, and you want your project to have long-term success, I think you will not. You will fail. You will fail. Because being a great social media manager is about external, right? Like marketing, putting sales enablement. It's about, advertising, telling the stories to the public. The community manager is about telling the stories, letting people know that they're heard, listening to people, having conversations, being the facilitator of conversations, not being the face and the owner. Like great community managers are people that they know who the community managers are, but they never feel like they're getting in the way. It's kind of like a referee in sports. The greatest referees do a great job of balancing the rules, but not becoming the centerpiece of a sport, right? When all of a sudden you're talking only about the referees have not done their job. When you are only talking about the community manager and what the moderators have to say, that is not doing a great job. A great community manager, a great moderator understands that balance. But to understand that balance, they have to be committed, they have to be all in on that entire community, but they also have to be tapped in to the executive team, into the founders to know where we're going, what the delays are. How do I give people updates to where it's not, blindsiding them with, hey, the day before a deliverable being like, oh, by the way, we're 20 days behind. You're going to have to give us some more time. And then the last part of this I think is important is when you're building this community, transparency cannot be, it is everything, but it does not mean you share your dirty laundry. Remember, I say this a lot. Transparency is giving people a window into who you are. It does not make you trustworthy. Transparency gives you a window to determine if you are trustworthy or not at a faster pace. And so here's the thing that happens too often is that a NFT project launches, people buy in, there's a lot of excitement right away, and then there's silence. And people are, you hear things like we're working in the background and we have all these partnerships in the works. And all these things are true probably and exciting. But as a community member, you're like, I can't wait, I want to learn more. And then all of a sudden you're told, hey, that thing we're working on is 45 days delayed. Just trust us, don't worry, we're still working on it. Here's the thing. With a community, you shouldn't have to say, trust us. If you are being transparent with your open communication and allowing your community to come with you on the journey of your NFT project, you don't have to say, trust me, and you don't even have to say, sorry, we're delayed. You can say, hey, as you all have been seeing and all of you know, we've been working with this project. You've been along on the steps. It's going to take us a little bit longer to make it happen, but please give us your feedback on things that maybe we can make happen. Because guess what? You're letting them come with you on the journey. That access, I can't stress this enough. How do you really enable that community from the start? Is give them more access than you're comfortable with. More access to your vision, your mission, more access to you. You need to give access to them, right? Like you need to listen to what the pulse is of your community. You need to be willing to adapt or willing to educate them on why you're not adapting, right? All of these things. And then the last part, and there's two parts here. I know I've said last part twice, but this is something I'm really passionate about. There's two key aspects that I look for in great community managers as well as great community leaders. How many times are they using we versus you? The words we use in community management, community leadership are essential. You noticed earlier, if you go back to this earlier in this podcast, I said, I love what we are doing in our community and what we believe in our Discord, and we are coming together, right? Because it's a we. I didn't say, I love all of you that are in our Discord. All of you are doing a great job talking to each other. You know what's about. This is all because that is talking at you, not talking with you. The words we use as hey, this is a problem we have, right? Or this is what we are going through versus this is what I'm going through or this is what you're going through. The second part of a great community manager, great community leader is that you operate in a participatory way that allows people to shape and participate in what you're building while also being able to convey what's going on, being willing to say what you don't know, admit when you don't know something, being able to have strong convictions that are loosely held. What I mean by that is do your research, understand what you want, but also recognize that if the greater amount of people, the greater good determines that, hey, what you want is no longer what we want, you have to have that loosely held to where you can give that up and you can move forward together. For me, the creator economy is beyond exciting because it is an opportunity for the rising tide to lift all ships. But if we are not empowering our community managers, if we are not leveraging social media marketers and social media managers, if we are not giving moderators the power to do moderators' jobs, we're missing the boat. Now you might be like, well, Brian, what about like interns and like people? I think a great role for interns and great community leaders is being moderators in the Discord. Moderating in a Discord is a hell of a job. It is a skill set in its own. And I think they should be empowered. I think it should be a role that you continue to evolve, keep adding on moderators. But at the same time, we have to recognize there's a difference between someone that is moderating a Discord and someone that is fostering a community. Because there is no easy button in community. There's no start stop. There's no, and this is probably the hardest part for most people to get. When do most projects recognize that they need their community? I'm going to give you the answer. When it's too late. Here's the truth. You need to let your community know today that you care about them. You need to let them know tomorrow that they're helping you shape the vision and the future of your project. Because guess what? When you get hacked, when a partnership falls through, when you find out that like maybe the artist that you hired isn't the artist that you said they were, if that is the first time you're leaning in on your community, you know what your community has to say? Screw you. Screw you for just now caring about us. You must care about your audience and community before they know that you want them to care about you. You know what I mean by that? Right? Like care, you need to show you care along the way. And because guess what happens? The minute that something goes wrong or there's something there's some turmoil, they come to your defense. The greatest example I can give to this is Crypto Chicks. I believe Crypto Chicks has an amazing community. And I'm a holder of a Crypto Chick, so I'm very transparent on that. But I also think that they understood their community. They believed in their community. They empowered their community along the way. And when they had a little bit of turmoil, when it was exposed that one of their artists was doing some things that was probably not in the best interest of the greater community, guess what people did? Like myself. We went publicly and said, I stand behind Crypto Chicks. I believe in what Am and the team are building. Do you know why? Because they cared about us beforehand. And I knew what they were about. I knew what their values were. I trusted that they would make the right decision at the end. Every single NFT project is missing this boat. They believe they have a community. Some of them probably do. They don't empower their community managers. They don't respect their moderators. They believe social media after they sell out is probably something they can just do on the side. And they also think that it's about growing and getting in front of a new audience. When they miss the boat, it's about making the existing audience so happy, so valued, so heard that nobody wants to leave. And that the people that do want to leave for whatever reasons, it's so hard to buy one of those because there's only a few amount of them left. I'm going to talk a little bit more about community. I'm hopefully going to share more on this topic in the near future. I'm going to be at Social Media Marketing World at the end of the year. We're also speaking at, we're going to be at LA, NFT LA. We're going to be at Miami NFT Week. We just got an announcement of being at NFT NYC. We're going to be at the Customer Experience Expo. We're going to be at Social Fresh, the Social Fresh Expo. Tons of events coming up. I can't wait to meet everybody in person. And, you know, I truly do believe in we are greater than me. And I believe we are greater than me isn't about online versus offline. It's about the harmony between the two. I don't think of someone's value in my life as having more or less because I met them online or I met them offline. And that's a whole nother podcast episode, because right now we're building NFT Project community only online. When we have to now bridge online and offline, and we have to bring people that connect with us offline into the online space and bring people that are valued online into the offline space, that's when community management is really put to the test. But I'll have to do that in another episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. I did want to give a quick shout out to a couple projects that we minted. I've been forgetting to do this again, but I wanted to make sure to give people, you know, we are buying an NFT every single day. And so over the last couple of days, we bought some really cool projects that I wanted to highlight. We bought Crypto Tech Women, which is a great NFT project. Actually, one of the founders of Crypto Tech Women is going to be on our podcast in the very near future. We also, jumped in on Not Your Bro NFT, another great project that is really focused on empowerment around inclusivity, representation for women, LGBTQA plus, really just a great community of diversity. We also minted the 90s Babes NFT, another great team out of Arizona. They're a great group of people. I love their social media accounts. They talk about a lot of 90s nostalgia, and the community is a great community over there. And then also one of the ones we just recently minted was actually a music NFT from someone that I got to know via the Bunny Buddies project, which I'm very blessed about, and that's Sammy. So Sammy launched a project called the Digital Hearts, and the Digital Hearts is a project that we just minted, and actually the Digital Hearts are going to unlock songs by Sammy and things that he has moving on. And I actually fell asleep last night on Twitter Spaces listening to Sammy with the Bunny Buddies he was doing a karaoke, like anyone could suggest a song and he was singing it. And I mean, he's got silky smooth voice, and it was a great time. So yeah, check out those projects. All of them are available on our website. So if you want to see, hey, what are all the projects you've bought for 112 days, just go to NFT365podcast.com/Mint365. So Mint365 is the name of the buying the NFT every day. Of course, the name of the podcast is NFT365. And my name is Brian Fanzo. I am iSocialFans with a Z. iSocialFans with a Z. My last name is Fanzo. Kind of get the play there. I'm iSocialFans on every social channel there is. Just search for me, iSocialFans. Let me know what you think about community. Let me know what your take is on these topics that I've been kind of talking about. And more so than anything else, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a part of this community. I love being a part of this community. I love being a member of this community, and I can't wait for 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, all the things that we as a community are going to do together. Until tomorrow, my friends, make it a great day. Cheers. Woo. All right, video people. Maybe we could tell I'm fired up about that topic. I had my notes here, and I didn't even get to my last 2 bullets because I realized I was already 35 minutes in. But I think each one of those things are so important to hit on, and we really have to dial into some of this true value. And we can't allow hey, that's a community because it's in Discord, or hey, the values of that community are what the founders set and then never adapt. And I think in the NFT project space, a lot of them aren't doing it well, but I've got faith. Send this video, post this video in the Discords of the projects that you want the community to grow, but also post it in the ones that are great so people know that what they're a part of is something unique and something fun. I appreciate all of you. Cheers.